What's up, fam? It's your boy G-Man, and welcome to the Superhero Brothers podcast. Guys, on today's episode, we are going to be reviewing the recently released Black Adam. For those of you on the YouTube channel, you can see I'm rocking the Black Adam compression shirt. Guys, I'm super pumped to review this movie. I was hyped about it coming out. Of course, you guys know from that previous episode, Dwayne Johnson can effectively do no wrong in my eyes for right now in terms of the DC universe. So I was super excited coming into this movie considering he got Superman to come back. But how I'm going to break it down is go over what I liked about this film, what I disliked about this film, and then give my overall rating and let you guys know whether you should actually see this film and how do I think this will impact the DCEU. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into what I like. So first and foremost, I love how violent this movie was, guys. And this wasn't like an action game violent. Like, dude, this was like DC, like I'm gonna incinerate folks. I'm gonna ripping people's throats out. Like, they really leaned into that gritty nature. Now, of course, it wasn't like rated R, even though it was supposed to be, which is actually absolutely wild. I couldn't imagine how much more violent it would have been. But it was just cool to see that DC is starting to lean back into that darker side and grittier side of what really makes them DC rather than Marvel. Also, I really enjoyed the Hawkman versus Black Adam battles. Love seeing Aldous Hodge hold his own and really go blow for blow with Black Adam for a little bit, and then like Black Adam turned up and he's like, look, there's a reason this movie's called Black Adam and I'm the main character and you're a side character. But I think one of my favorite characters in this entire film was Dr. Fate. So shout out to Pierce Brosnan. He absolutely killed this role. I think he really made this movie, in my opinion, from his acting to his action sequences and really how he pushed the story. Like, in my opinion, he really kind of carried the film right when he got onto screen. Just as a warning for you guys, this episode does contain spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie yet and you do not want to have this spoiled, I recommend stopping this podcast right now. But also something that I really enjoyed was Sabbac as a villain. I think the character design was really cool. I thought his powers were cool. I really wish he actually got a little bit more screen time than he did. The movie was only like 2 hours and 4 minutes, and I think he was only, it felt like really in the last like 10 to 15, if that. So really wish we could have seen a little bit more of him. I thought like I said, I thought his design was awesome, and he was absolutely bodying the heroes, even Black Adam. So I thought that was really dope. And something I actually think they did relatively well was they didn't just give all of Black Adam's origin story in the first part of the film. They kind of broke it out in the beginning, a little bit in the middle, and in the end to see kind of like how Black Adam, or Teth Adam, depending on how much you read the comics, became who he is today. And then, of course, last but not least, I can't go without saying this, so definite spoiler alert. But in the mid-credits, Superman Henry Cavill is officially back, and we get to see him and Black Adam interact.
There's no one on this planet that can stop me.
I can call in a favor and send people who aren't from this planet.
Send them all. It's been a while since anyone's made the world this nervous. Black Adam. We should talk.
Love that dialogue that they had. It's great to see Henry Cavill back in the MCU, and of course, it's great to see Henry Cavill back in the DCEU, and of course, we want to see Black Adam and Superman go toe to toe, and they will at some point. I mean, it just has to happen because we got to know who's the strongest. I mean, us geeks know it's Superman, but there will always be some people who love The Rock who think that Black Adam should be the strongest. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go into some of the things I actually really disliked about this film. First and foremost, It had terrible pacing. And really no well-developed plot. It felt like I was moving from action sequence to action sequence with like mediocre dialogue at best. A lot of the lines were very cheesy and they just didn't hit the mark. Like even I feel like even if like little kids were looking at this film, they'd be like, yeah, that's not hitting the way it should. It just kind of feels forced. I think Atom Smasher and Cyclone, Atom Smasher and Cyclone, and that was played by Noah Centineo and Celeste O'Connor. Absolute waste of characters. Now, I'm not saying it's on them, but I feel like there was so much potential with Atom Smasher and Cyclone that they could have explored, but they really didn't. They tried to make this weird, awkward relationship thing with them and have Noah Centineo be comic relief, which, I'm not gonna lie, that really sucked. Please don't do that in future Atom Smasher films. And I feel like he did all of that work, and he supposedly he got like super ripped for this movie to like not even have any of the results show. Like, felt really bad for him in that aspect. But there was so much potential that could have been explored. Hopefully, as the Atom Smasher grows older, he becomes more of kind of a scientist and can glean into that knowledge. And also with Cyclone, I didn't have too much known about her, but I feel like she could have just been used in a much better way. As well, something that really ticked me off, I'm not gonna lie, I did like how they were starting to make the origin story, but they got the origin story wrong. And I blame this partially because I know The Rock doesn't want his brand to be like, I guess, damaged or not always seen as like the good guy. He's like, I want to be the anti-hero and really more emphasis on the hero rather than the anti. But bro, your origin story was not accurate. Teth Adam didn't save his son and then get his powers. The man killed his son and took the powers. Like, be accurate. Like, embrace the anti portion of this. Like, I feel like there really could have been. I know it honestly felt kind of like Hobbs shaved his beard off and what had superpowers for a good little bit. The Rock didn't even try to do an accent to be kind of comic accurate. They're in Kahndaq. I'm like, bro, there's no way you should have no accent and sound like a super American after 5,000 years. The Americans didn't even exist at that time. So I was not a fan of that, to say the least. So before going into the rest of my dislikes, a quick aside, I totally thought the real Supes was in this movie and that he was playing Amon, because they look almost exactly alike. It was ridiculous. But with that being said, it wasn't actually him, so I will not feel super bad in saying this, but the actors for Amon and Adriana just felt weak to me. Like, I was like, you guys aren't needed in this story. The acting was bad, to say the least, and that's just putting it in a nice way. Like, the homie was throwing up triangles, like, no real purpose. Or the purpose that they thought it was it just like it wasn't executed really well. And also, how are these superheroes gonna take orders from like non-superpowered beings? Like, they were acting like this Adriana almost all of a sudden she becomes the teen mom, is telling them what to do. Like, she's some like Coulson or Nick Fury. I'm like, you aren't that. Like, you are a random citizen. There is no way a demigod, an actual magical, basically, god, and two other superheroes are just like, you know what? We should only listen to her. Like, we don't have any sense of strategy in our minds. So I thought that was dumb. So actually thinking about it, I wish those two characters actually died, because it could have developed Black Adam's character more, because he would have been like, oh, I tried to do it the JSA's way of always keeping the good people alive or stuff and such, trying to do it their way, and it fails and they die because of it. I feel like that would have helped drive his character home more, being like, hey, I need to be able to do what these regular superheroes or the JSA won't do, because there's no black and white lines for me. It's gray. Like, I need to be able to defend my people from these threats, and not everyone should be surviving this. And that being said, and not everyone did survive this, so another spoiler alert. But Dr. Fate died. Like, I was pissed. I don't even know what to say. I was like, he's the best part of this movie, and y'all killed him after one film. I don't know if Pierce Brosnan was just possibly not open to doing more films, or I think maybe he had just done it as a favor for his kids. But yeah, really, really bummed out, because I think he would have made a great Kent Nelson for future films and really could have helped drive that mystic portion of the DCEU. But with all of that being said, My rating for this film was a whopping 7.5. So it's watchable. I definitely would recommend at least seeing it if you're a huge rock fan, if you're a big superhero buff. Mainly, I would say just for the performances of Pierce Brosnan and Aldous Hodge as Hawkman. I know I didn't say too much about Hawkman. I do think he was dope, I'm not going to lie. I think Aldous Hodge did a phenomenal job as the character and portraying him. I know Hawkman never has gotten a lot of love in the comics initially. Like, I didn't like him in the comics initially, but Aldous Hodge actually made me kind of really like the character in this DCEU spectrum. But again, with that being said, I'm not going to say like this is a movie you absolutely have to see in the theaters. It's an okay film. Like I said, it has poor pacing, so just don't go into it expecting like, okay, like I'm going to see this story develop in a way that I can enjoy it and appreciate this character. Like, it's kind of, I would say like it's a mashed up version of a Fast and Furious movie without the cars and a superhero film. Like I said, if you can get through the cheesy one-liners and kind of corny just dialogue and you're just there for the action sequences, you'll be absolutely stoked. So yeah, so 7.4, 7.5, guys. If you disagree with me or agree with me, please let me know in the comments whether you do or not and why, because I would love to get your thoughts on what you guys saw on the movie. And yeah, I was excited to see. Now, granted, I will say from a DCEU perspective, they definitely saw at the end of the film, they're like, oh, future team? He's like, don't count on it. But, you know, they're trying to expand the Justice Society of America, so we know probably Cyclone and Atom Smasher will be back. Don't know who from the Justice League will be back, but by them also this is another thing I forgot to totally reference that I like, but the Inner Gang reference. So that is a gang that is specific to Metropolis and Superman, but I'm hoping that they expand more galactically, because they use Inner Gang as a invading force that was from like another planet or another galaxy, which that I thought was really exciting, because I'm like, okay, like we can get more Thanagarians coming, so maybe a Hawkgirl. The Green Lantern still has hope. Would love to see Jon Stewart brought to the screen. Hint, hint, wink, wink. As well as Kilowog, Guy Gardner. There's just like such an expansive universe. To have Darkseid come back, like that would be so dope. So we'll just have to see the direction that they go, but I do like that they're officially expanding this. Now, granted, the Justice Society of America and Justice League shouldn't have existed at the same time based on the comics, but I guess Warner Brothers Discovery is just rolling with it, so I think maybe the Justice Society and Justice League will end up merging together and just will become the Justice League of America. I feel like that's going to be the route that DC ends up taking, but again, we will just have to see, and I think the Blue Beetle will kind of end up joining the Justice Society, so that's way in the future when that film comes out, but that's just my best guess as they start to develop and build out that team. But with all of that being said, guys, let's go ahead and dive right into the Daily Bugle news and rumors. So we're actually going to flip the switch and start with Marvel and then go with DC, because we have gotten a lot of casting rumor updates. Supposedly, Adam Driver and Hayden Christensen have met with Marvel to possibly join the studios as characters. So Adam Driver specifically on the Fantastic Four. So I feel like he's either in the running for Doctor Doom or The Thing. Hayden Christensen's role has not been announced of possibly who he would be kind of auditioning for. We do know that there is a Silver Surfer featurette coming up, so maybe that could be Hayden Christensen. Maybe he could be going for Nova. We just don't know, but we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop as we get more updates. Also, Jeremy Renner has confirmed he will probably not return for the future Avenger films, so that's Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty. And honestly, I don't really care. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm sure there's some great Hawkeye fans out there, but I'm like, bro, you ain't doing nothing. Like, you really aren't. You are not at a level where you can face down these threats and really do any type of damage. Be like, oh, well, what about the Black Widow? She'd be useless against Kang too. Like, bro, it just ain't it. It's okay for him to kind of like retire now and have him off screen and really kind of have Haley Steinfeld take on that mantle of Hawkeye. So now going into the DC universe, of course, so J.J. Abrams' Superman movie is actually still in development. Even though Henry Cavill is back, it's going to be a totally different Superman. So I don't know if maybe they're going to go the Val Zod route and have Michael B. Jordan or another actor take on that role. Very intrigued. We don't know too many details about that film, but we know that it is still in development. So we'll be very intrigued with DC if they want to fold that into becoming like Man of Steel 2, or if it's going to start off a whole nother kind of universe and kind of have the Crisis on Multiple Earths kind of slowly develop out that story arc. So in the previous episode, we did mention that the Flash 2 script had been developed. However, DC is actually looking at new replacements for Ezra Miller. They are not wanting to push forward with him, which to me that makes sense, and I'm super happy because again, I think people need to be held accountable for their actions. And he's been just doing some crazy stuff, which leads me into the next rumor. Or this isn't even a rumor, this is a fact. Ezra Miller can face up to 26 years in prison if he is found guilty on all the charges that have been brought up against him. So all his little, like, excuse my French, but half-ass apology is not going to cut it. Like, it's like, if you get convicted, you're going to prison. Like, all the stuff you've been doing, wilding out, like, you just can't claim, oh, I just didn't understand how bad it was. Like, no, you did. Like, now you got to pay the price. But again, that's if he is convicted. If he is not convicted, I think the lowest they'll have is like a $5,000 fine, which is, again, I feel like that's not even a drop out of his wallet. But at the same time, I'm not trying to make people grow broke, but at the same time, it's like people need to understand the severity of their actions. All right, with that, fam, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating. Not only does this ensure that we stay consistent with our content, but we're also curating content that you guys enjoy. Be sure to subscribe, guys. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere there's a podcast. Your boys are out there keeping you in the know on superhero knowledge as well. Go ahead and be sure to follow us on YouTube and all social media platforms, including Instagram and TikTok, where you guys will be able to see clips of this episode, as well as superhero-themed workouts and our future giveaways coming up for this holiday season. With that, fam, it's your boy G-Man, and you have been listening to the Superhero Brothers.